that's something I've been very focused on, is trying to keep all of it with us as simple
Yeah.
as possible for our agents, right? Streamline boarding process and application process and point of contact for support. Your RM is the same. You're not having to call a million different places, but it's
Yes.
been a big focus for us.
Hey everybody, so we got a special episode today with Dustin Magaziner from PayBright talking about CBD merchants and using Clover. So some really interesting things that he's been doing. We also talk about integrated payments and just some really cool stuff, trends that are happening right now. And then Patty, tell us a little bit about the insiders today.
Some really cool, some very promising data on end of year holiday shopping. I think that some of the data that it's out there is pointing to it's going to be a very beneficial holiday season for agents, ISOs, and the acquirers.
Yeah, I love it. And then we also have Rich Norton jumping on and talking about
Right.
sales a little bit. I also want to mention that PayBright is a advertiser with CC Sales Pro. So nothing really about the podcast per se, but they are an advertiser with CC Sales Pro. So I always like to kind of mention that whenever we're interviewing somebody. But this is just a fantastic interview with somebody that Patty and I both respect in the industry that's really doing some cool stuff. So with that being said, let's dive into this episode.
Let's do it.
Hey everybody, I'm here with my good friend Dustin Magaziner. How you doing today, Dustin?
I'm great. Happy Monday here. Glad to be on as always.
Yeah, absolutely great to have you. So today, talking about CBD merchants, a topic I honestly never knew that you and I would discuss, but it's so interesting and it's such a popular hot topic in the market today. We're going to talk about underwriting, getting these deals approved, and talk about what you've been doing in this space. But before we dive into that, it's been a little while since you were on the podcast, Dustin. So give us a little update. What's PayBright been doing? What have you been focused on the last 6 months?
Last 6 months, I think I mentioned to you the other day when we were chatting briefly, have been a lot of work, but I feel really good about where things are. Have spent a lot of time to improve certain, processes and relationships that we have, and starting to see some of this come to fruition. The topic, obviously, of CBD being one of them, but we've really been focusing on just strengthening our foundation and improving some processes here, and it's been coming along now.
Love it. So, all right, as we talk about CBD, let's zoom out and let's answer two questions. Number one, what is a CBD merchant? And number two, why are these so hard to place? What makes them such kind of quote unquote high risk merchant accounts?
Yeah, so great question. The first one, what is a CBD merchant? I think means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right?
Right.
Is my pet food store up the street that has a pet, treat that says CBD on it, inherently now a CBD merchant? I mean, these are the questions that, banks and underwriters are having to consider. I can speak for us, and I think for a lot of the industry at large, about really what is and isn't CBD. So the first scenario I just gave, right, that pet food store, a grocery store, I think most of the industry would say those are not CBD businesses.
Right.
Maybe they have a little bit, but not going to fall into this general category. What really is CBD, I think, still falls into two fundamental categories. The most common one we see is just smoke shops that nowadays they all sell CBD, Delta 8, Kratom type products. And the second one is your actual CBD merchant. This might be a CBD website or a business that calls themselves something like an apothecary. They are primarily in the business of selling CBD related products. And so we break it down into those two categories, kind of the first and second, or tier one and tier two, as we like to refer to it. That's the way I think of it, at least. As for why these businesses are high risk, there's a lot of compliance and frankly, bank fear surrounding these products. Various states have continued to pass various laws, making it restricted, potentially illegal in certain states. These products oftentimes have minimal testing or variance in their testing. Here in my home state, here in North Carolina, I actually personally, this is not something I'm involved in. I just happen to know an attorney who was representing a gas station and convenience store business owner, because this owner was being prosecuted for distribution of drugs because they were selling some CBD products that the COAs weren't accurate on. So they got raided. This business owner was not intending, as far as I'm aware, to sell anything illegal, thought these products were completely fine, and the COAs were not representative of what the products were actually, right? What was actually within these, packages. So
Right.
all of this adds to the why these are oftentimes seen as high risk.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so basically this small business owner who thought he was just adding a product became a drug dealer.
Pretty much. And from the attorney that I know, there's no real fear that this business owner will get jail time. But even the fact that that's a conversation is terrifying,
Right.
right? I mean, we both
Right.
know this isn't. How scary is it if you were doing something that is just completely what your whole industry does, and you found out, 6 months from now that somebody's facing jail time for doing something that no one would even fathom is
Right.
a
It's scary.
yeah, it's really
Yeah, and
scary.
I think that just speaks to the larger kind of confusion in the marketplace around these products, and why maybe there's all these challenges with getting these deals approved and placed. So, all right, so maybe you can help us understand, since you've kind of gone through this process recently, Dustin. There's just so much confusion around who does what in terms of, well, who is deciding if these deals get approved? Who is setting the like criteria for this is an approved CBD merchant? This is not approved. Talk to us about the role of the sponsor bank versus what we would think of more of like TSYS, Fiserv. Who's doing what? How does this all work?
Yeah, great question. I think many people who are probably going to listen to this think things along the lines of, First Data or Clover. They don't like CBD products, right? That's something I've heard often,
Right.
things I've read online. This isn't really the truth of how this operates or functions. What it really comes down to is the sponsor bank, right? We all know that every, processor, every ISO, every merchant, there's a sponsor bank involved. And those sponsor banks have, their underwriting criteria, their approved merchant lists, prohibited lists, restricted lists, and so on. Usually this is going to be, worked between the processor and that bank. And the bank is going to go based on, sometimes their own level of how conservative they are. Some of these banks may be in different states and understand these products at a different level. Some may be bigger than others, right? Certain really large publicly traded businesses may want to stay out of these verticals just for reputational reasons. It's not even financial or compliance concerns, it's simply reputational. You see that a lot with firearms these days. Certain businesses want to stay out of these verticals just because of the press that could be associated with them.
Right.
So overall, it largely is going to, be the sponsor bank that's involved and what their comfort and tolerance are, as well as their understanding of these products. We all have seen scenarios where a processor approves a merchant, and then there's a bank audit later on because they do bank audits, right? These banks sometimes they go and they pull files by name, right? It has the word smoke
Yep.
in it or tobacco or whatever it is, and they don't like what they see and they shut it down.
Right.
So it's not just about getting it approved up front, but also being comfortable and confident that these accounts will remain open if and when there's a bank audit, because there's, with these industries, usually going to be one.
Yeah.
So a big part of it is the bank, the sponsor bank, and what they are comfortable with.
Hmm. You know, we talk so much, Dustin, about, when we talk about CBD and high risk in general, we talk a lot about kind of just getting the accounts approved. Kind of with this idea of like, man, if only there was a way to get them a terminal so they could process payments. But my question is, what does a CBD merchant actually want in terms of technology? And what are you guys looking to provide now that you're willing to accept these merchant accounts? What are the technology options you were looking for? And how did you kind of go through that thought process?
So funny enough, the solutions that we offer were the easier part of this entire process, right? I mean, getting some of these banks on board and adding new banks, which is what we've done over the last few months to support these merchants, was a lot more challenging than the solutions that these individual merchants are looking for. But we offer these merchants a lot of things, from standalone terminals to, we have our point of sale desk, our POS desk that offers, over 25 different point of sale options. Obviously, not all of those would be a fit for these
Right.
types of merchants. But most excitingly, right, with this new, with our newest CBD option coming on board, is now the ability to support Clover for these merchants. So this has been one of the most popular requests that we've had for probably the last 2 years or so, and is why I've spent the better part of the last 7, 8, 9 months trying to get everything to line up to be able to support Clover with CBD products without a risk of it being shut down later on, right? An actual approved product with everything involved. So there's a lot of options. Some of them are looking for standalone terminals. Heck, some of these are online websites, right? They're card
Right.
not present. They just need a gateway.
Right.
Um, but a lot of them are going to be handled similarly to a lot of retail businesses. Some need different things, scan data, IDs, etc. But the solutions are actually a lot easier than the underwriting.
Mm. So I want to dig into this with one more question before we move on from this, because this structural component I think is so crucial for our audience to understand. And even now we've got a lot of ISV, software companies listening in and things like that. And I think there's just so much confusion about this. So let's go one more time around this. So as far as this structure, we have the sponsor bank, right? And then what role does like TSYS and Fiserv, like maybe you could explain that a little bit. And then we have the technology piece that sits kind of in the middle. Like, can you give us one more time, just a little bit of a, if you were explaining this to somebody that didn't understand the industry very well, like maybe a software company, how would you explain the role of the sponsor bank and then what we would call the front end, the TSYS or Fiserv, and then the technology piece?
Yeah. So every, ISO or processor is going to have their agreed upon underwriting criteria with their bank, right? Or their banks. From there, in most cases, that ISO response, that ISO or processor is going to review those files and be able to make a decision on that account approval or denial or pen for information in agreement with that predetermined underwriting criteria. And based on certain factors, there might be what we call concurrence, where we have to then take that file to the bank and get their additional sign off. That's not as common, but that does happen from time to time. When a processor continually approves accounts that shouldn't have been, continually gets accounts shut down, of course, they face reputational issues, but they also may, what we sometimes refer to as blow up their bin, right? Their relationship with their bank. You've seen this from time to time with various processors where they're having to continually change which sponsor banks they're working with for risk reasons. So at the end of the day, TSYS and Fiserv themselves at the platform level, they're not really involved in the underwriting side of things, right? So we board to both TSYS and Fiserv. And since it's the same bank and application process in most cases, we can just move a file from one to the other, right? There's no, this can be approved on TSYS, but not on Fiserv in most cases, right? That's not how it works. It is a little different if you are an agent boarding business directly to TSYS or directly through Fiserv as an agent of theirs, right? Because in that case, TSYS or Fiserv in that case are boarding you and they are still subject to their bank criteria. But if you're boarding through an ISO of TSYS or Fiserv, they're not part of that underwriting criteria, at least not in this type of relationship.
Yeah. And I think one thing that makes it so confusing, Dustin, is that in our industry, all these different entities, they overlap in their definition, right? Because you'll have like everything from an ISO, and it's like, well, what does it mean to be an ISO? Well, I don't know. Are you retail? Are you wholesale? Are you a super ISO? And do you own your own back end? Do you have your own? So there's all the, but I think there's these puzzle pieces, and you got to kind of look at these organizations and say, wait a minute, which puzzle pieces am I fitting together? Because as you said, with Fiserv, I mean, yeah, you could go be a wholesale ISO with Fiserv and use their sponsor bank, relationship. And now, yeah, they do control that. Or you could say, well, I just want to use this one little piece, which is Fiserv front end, so that I can work with Clover, but I'm going to have my own sponsor bank to do the underwriting, right? So it gets very complicated.
And even within that, now you have companies, processors who have gone and become wholesale and or FSP, but they still have a retail relationship. So
Right.
it's which bank are we boarding on? One's retail, one is not. The underwriting criteria, even the process, the platform, the dashboard, all of it's different, and it's very confusing.
Right.
And so that's something I've been very focused on, is trying to keep all of it with us as simple
Yeah.
as possible for our agents, right? One streamlined boarding process, an application process, and point of contact for support. Your RM is the same. You're not having to call a million different places.
Right.
That's been a big focus. Sometimes
Yeah.
easier said than done, but it's
Yes.
been a big focus for us.
Love it. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit. I want to just zoom out for a second, and I want to just talk about integrated payments. So I know you have your POS desk. Now with CBD, you have this focus on, hey, let's give them Clover and let's give them other options and things like that. How do you see this trend of integrated payments playing out over the next few years? What are the trends that are going to accelerate? What are you kind of seeing as you look into your kind of crystal ball that of course none of us really have, but like, what do you see as the future here?
So I've been saying this for a little while. I mean, I believe that integrated payments will be the future of the ISO. I think we're already starting to see this, and as well as already start to see some of our competitors start to fall behind. I mean, we're having, agents come in every day because, what we hear is, oh, my current processor, my current ISO, they offer me this one solution or no solutions. It's this completely decentralized approach that all these agents have to go and source their own products, which really makes no sense, right?
Right.
So I think that's the future. For us, right, we want to do it through partnerships, and being the products team for all of our agents works really well for us, and that's a big focus of our POS desk. We try to introduce several new products every year while also phasing out ones that maybe have fallen behind or aren't performing the way we need. We have the data for hundreds or thousands of use cases, as opposed to one agent who may only use that product once or twice all year and fall into a bad experience because of it. So our model is to continue to introduce products and bring more of them. I also think more products are going to come to the market. I think I have one slightly unpopular opinion in this industry, and it's that as so much of the industry is starting to move away from the agent ISO business and really move directly towards the ISV solutions. And so, for those that are listening, what I mean here is many of the ISOs or the historical ISOs that you've worked with, they're a lot less interested in working with you as an agent and now want to go directly to that software company to partner.
Mhm.
That's not what I want to do because I believe that while that is a good option, there will continue to be enough of these software companies that need the sales channel. And so,
Mhm.
yes, that established company that has 5 or 10,000 merchants already, they may want to go direct to a processor and become an ISV like that. But the company that's opening next month or next year and needs a sales channel, they still are going to want to rely on the ISO agent model. At least that's my take on it. So it's been a really good solution for us. In a lot of cases, it means that we're working with startup companies or softwares that are newer to the market for our agents. And in a lot of cases, they have products and solutions that our competitors don't have. So it's been a good fit for us.
Yeah, I actually 100% agree with your assessment on that. I think that, one of the other challenges here too is there's this concept in our industry that's just a total misconception in my experience, which is the software companies, they're able to just go to a processor and go, oh, we solved our payments problem. Right now, with the ISVs that I'm working with many, many others through relationships I have, we're seeing that the average percentage of their new business that's doing integrated payments through their payment processing, 15 to 25%. So, that's not a solved payment problem at all. The issue is they still don't understand the things that we just discussed a little bit ago. And so they have a couple of options. One is, yeah, you can go to like a Stripe, right? And yeah, they do make payments really, really easy. You don't make any money, but they make it really easy, right? Or the software company says, "Oh, we have to solve the payments problem." Well, if you actually want to solve it, you can say, "Well, we're going to become a PayFac." Well, that's going to cost you $1 million, going to take you forever, and you're going to have to hire seven, different payments experts to run new divisions. Or you can deal with the mess that we just described. Find your sponsor bank, pick your front end, figure out what technology you want to get, certified. It's a big, big mess. And so I think macro, like people like yourself and companies like that, we are bringing things to the software companies that they need. And they're realizing that just saying, well, we have our own payments. Well, congratulations. That doesn't mean you're going to make any money. You got to actually do it the right way and figure it out. And a lot of that is the sales side. And we have
Yep.
that figured out. We know how to sell payments.
I agree. I think there's even more to it. I actually think the whole PayFac model, obviously there's some big players in that space,
Right.
Stripe, Square, et cetera, that really dominate there. But over the last several years, the delta or the gap between PayFacs and traditional merchant service providers like us is continually getting smaller.
Oh, 100%.
The
Yep.
approval timeframes, the application process, the APIs, and all of the details that used to make PayFacs an advantage, they're
Right.
just not there anymore. So,
Right.
or at least they're not as extreme anymore.
Right.
So, in most of these cases, these software companies that we're dealing with, they are not looking for that, right? I
No.
mean, we just, worked out a deal with a restaurant solution that's now boarding their business here with PayBright. And just to be clear, our agents still get to board that, and that's
Right.
still like an
Sure.
agent deal, no conflicts there. But when they're bringing their house deals to us, they literally just said to us they were shocked because their old solution, which was much more of a PayFac solution, was actually more complicated, right? The application process ended up with, more pens, and the API, in order to keep it up to date, required their developers to do a lot
Right.
more work. With our regular application, they have their average account still approved in hours. The equipment flows correctly. Like, it was super simple, and they did not expect that.
Right.
And that's where I don't know that it would have been that way 4 years ago, by the
Right.
way.
And
That's a
probably, and they're probably making a lot more money
yeah,
on the accounts that they're getting right with you because these other solutions they go to don't their schedule. They'll be like, I talk to companies all the time. Oh, we have an unbeatable deal. We have a 90% split. And I'm like, okay, cool. What's your schedule A cost? And they're like, what's a schedule A?
exactly.
And it's
And
like, oh,
meanwhile,
you're at 25 cents and 15 basis points and $18 a month. Well, nice job on that 90%. That's really like 40%. You know what I mean? So yeah.
yeah, and no support. And I think that's the
Right.
other part is a lot of these software companies, they are not really sure how to build payments revenue, right? They know it matters.
Right.
They've heard that enough at this point to know they want to be in
Right.
that arena, but they don't understand what a statement is supposed to look like and if they're being
Right.
paid They can't even audit their own numbers.
Right.
So, of course, being able to connect with someone that can actually walk them through the business and teach them really what's under the hood has its own level of value as well.
I love it. Well, I think this is just fascinating. I'm sure you and I have a lot more conversations down the road about all of this. And I think I love what you guys are doing. I think there's just there's a lot there to unpack. And I think there's so much that you're doing because again, you understand the ISO agent model in a unique way. And I think all of us, I think there's so many of us in the industry right now that are focused on solving this challenge of like, okay, we got to bridge this gap between the software company and the agent. And I think those are going to be the big winners. I think, the ISOs who just right now are saying, well, this is the way we've always done it. We're going to keep doing it that way. They're in trouble, right? I think the writing is on the wall, and I think you got a few years left, and you really need to be, all in right now making these shifts and these moves. So before I let you go, Dustin, for those who are interested in learning more about the CBD option, if there's anything else you want to say about that, go for it. But then also kind of in general, they want to learn about PayBright, your free placement, all the other cool things that you guys do. Where would you send them to learn more?
We'd love to chat with any of you that are interested to learn more. Best place to go is either via email. You can, email our team at relationships@gopaybright.com. Or you can call in and, press our option on our phone queue for prospective partners. Phone number for our office is 984-272-2568. We'd love to chat with each and every one of you and help you and some of your merchants that may be looking to sell some CBD products. We've got it handled.
Awesome. Love it. Good stuff, Dustin. Thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it as always.
Thanks so much for having me.
This episode of the Merchant Sales Podcast is brought to you by Nativia. And today I want to talk about the Nativia Business Conference. I went last year. I'm planning to go again this year. It's in Miami, and it is on February 5th and 6th in beautiful Miami, Florida. Great place to go, by the way, in early February if you're like me and you live in a cold climate like central Pennsylvania. Just a fantastic time. They bring a lot of vendors out. I'm going to be there. We'll see. I may even have actually one of my ISVs actually there doing exhibiting as well. And so it's just a great conference to come to if you want to connect with other payments professionals and just learn what's going on in what we lovingly call the Vladosphere, which is talking about Vlad Sadovsky. And he always has a lot of really interesting partnerships and deals going on. Again, the banking is there, the payment processing relationships, the technology vendors. So a lot of really cool stuff happening there. If you want to learn more about that, head over to conference.nativia.com. conference.nativia.com, and you can go there and get tickets and learn more about that event. So again, head over to conference.nativia.com. Hey everybody, back here with my good friend Rich Norton. How you doing today, Rich?
I am fantastic. I love being on these calls with you, and thank you for having me, and I very much appreciate it.
I always love it as well, and I understand you just recently got back from a little trip with the team. Is that right?
Yes, we did. We had our summer sales contest. It was the Super Cruise 17, and we had 17 representatives, and we just came back from beautiful Acapulco, Mexico, and it was a great trip. Weather held up. The little hurricane kind of coming through a little bit, but we prayed that out. We got that out of there, but it was fantastic. But what a great trip it was. And for me, it's just exciting to celebrate these representatives. And the ironic and exciting thing about that is a couple of them have only been with us for, I'm going to say 6 months or less. And then we had a young man, 19 years old, that finished in the 17th spot. Been doing this maybe about 6-7 months, and here he is on a beach, beautiful beach in Acapulco, Mexico. So what a great trip it was. And I just kind of observe, I sit back and observe and kind of watch everybody, and I see them by the pool. I see everybody interacting and celebrate, encouraging, and doing a lot of shop talk. I told everybody there, because they're bringing their spouses too, I said, not all shop talk, this is the spouses and your friends.
Unplug a little bit, right?
Exactly. This is their trip too. So shut it down and make it all about that. What a great trip it was.
I love it. Well, and I think that's such a great segue to the topic I wanted to discuss with you today, which is the team concept. So I think in our industry, Rich, maybe more than any other industry in sales that I'm aware of, there's just a large percentage of kind of the lone wolf salespeople who are listening to the podcast right now, are watching it, and they're thinking, yeah, I haven't talked to anybody that sells payment processing for the last 3 years, right? This is what they do. Talk about that a little bit. What is the importance? Because I feel like not all of those people are doing that by choice. Some of them, that's just the reality of this setup. So when you look at it, what are the pros and cons of saying, okay, no, I don't want to be that lone wolf. I'm going to be part of a team, kind of more like the structure you guys have where you have these reward trips and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Because if you're only a lone wolf. And it takes, as you know, it takes a lot of discipline to do what we do. And I think as a lone wolf, most people have the philosophy, well, I'm out here, I'm doing it for money. I just got to make a lot of money. And people talk about that in the beginning. But what we find out that this is more than just making money. This is life changing, and to be part of a team and to be part of a group, it's just exciting. I got a call, and I saw something on Facebook from one of our representatives that have been doing this for 4 months. And she started out kind of slow, and here she is 4 months later, it's starting to click. And she just talked about in this wonderful post that she put how great it is to be part of a team environment, about the encouragement that she receives. We do a Monday Zoom call, and yesterday when we did our call, we had 65 representatives on there. And just the encouragement and the excitement and the positive attitude, that's what it's all about right there. It goes way beyond making money. And I know when we first come into the business, we got to make money. I know how it was when I first began. But it comes to a point, it's like, this is just an exciting adventure, and having people along the way. It's a community. I know it sounds corny, but it's a family as well. And we build up great friendships, and just like I talked about earlier, being on this wonderful trip, being on a beautiful beaches. As I always talk about, we get to walk the beaches of the world with our top representatives. So it's much more than just making money. And it's much more than just having a job, because if you're doing it and you're out on your own, it gets lonely out there as a salesperson. And when you're having a tough day, or you might be down a little bit, or maybe an order fell through, just to have somebody that can encourage you. And I always tell our representatives, make sure you're talking to somebody, 1 to 2 to 3 people each day. Be part of that environment, be part of that team. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Richard, if there's those that are listening right now and they kind of want to learn a little bit more about your team, about joining up, or just kind of learn more about the industry and what you have to offer, where would you send them to learn more?
Yeah, you can reach out to me. And as you can imagine, I'm getting tons of calls. My executive team tells them, stop giving your number out. I don't mind talking to representatives. I love that. And that's the story that I hear most of all. And I'm never one to knock other merchant companies. They're all good. There's some great ones out there. But what resonates with everybody is the ones that say, look, I feel like I'm out here by myself. I'm not getting much training. I see what you guys are doing. How can I be part of that? You can reach out to me. My phone number is 904-434-4635, or you can even email me at payrock, P-A-Y-R-O-C, Rich Norton at gmail.com.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
So, James, consumers may feel somewhat insecure financially this holiday season, but many are prepared to overspend their budgets. This is according to a survey conducted by the Strawhecker Group and the ETA. And I think this bodes well for revenue generation for merchants, as well as for those acquirers and ISOs that deliver the support merchants need. TSG and ETA surveyed 992 consumers, so just under 1,000, early in October, for the Dual's 5th annual holiday spending survey. And consumers were asked about their spending plans, as well as payment methods and so forth that they plan to use. What they found was that 46% had already begun shopping for the holiday season. About 1 in 5 were between halfway and completely finished with their shopping. But here's the bright spot. Many are apt to overspend their budgets if they've budgeted at all for gift spending.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't know about you, I don't budget. I know a lot of people that don't.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that the National Retail Federation is predicting consumer spending this holiday season will rise between 8% and 9% over last year's spending, which was a good year to begin with. It was the first full year out of the pandemic.
Right.
They expect it to total between $295 and $297 billion.
Wow.
Just for the year-end holiday.
Yeah.
Now, a majority of those surveyed by TSG and ETA plan to spend between $250 and $500 on gifts, similar to last year. But when pressed on their budgeting, 37% said they might go over budget, and 22% said they had no budget plans anyway.
Right.
Consumers clearly expressed a need to extend their budgets this year, and to meet that demand, merchants may be looking for things like buy now, pay later, and other POS financing options, which
sure.
I think, should really, if our audience isn't out there selling that stuff now, they really need to be doing that. This could because this could present significant opportunities. Among those consumers surveyed, 58% had not used any of the commonly available buy now, pay later options. Last year it was 64%. So more people are using them. But there's still a lot of opportunity. Not surprisingly, Gen Z and millennials are the most likely to use buy now, pay later. There are other steps acquirers and their sales partners can take to make this a profitable holiday season, according to the report. 54% of those surveyed consumers said they were worried about wasting gas, which points to an ongoing demand for alternatives to in-store shopping.
Right.
Merchants should also be encouraged to leverage reporting tools that help them better understand their customers' payment preferences. For example, 37% of those surveyed have used tap to pay, which I think is actually a low percentage because
right.
You and I have discussed this. You use it all the time. I use it all the time. I'm a baby boomer, and I get annoyed if the tap doesn't work and they tell me to insert it.
Yeah.
Anyway, they said conversion rates are highest for tap to pay, one-click accounts, digital wallets, and person-to-person payment apps, suggesting adoption of these payment methods is going to continue to grow. So, I think it bodes well.
Yeah,
I would say, as you and I have said in past years when we've done these kind of reports, look for higher residual checks in January and February if this data is correct.
Yep, absolutely. It's always like kind of the late Christmas present for the payments industry is the volume from November and December.
Yeah, exactly. So. And it looks like the volume's going to be good. I mean, yeah. And it has been good so far. I mean, I don't know about you, but I go in the stores, I'm amazed at how much shopping I see going on. And of course, I always laugh that it's like before Halloween, stores already had the Christmas stuff out.
Oh, absolutely. They're trying to maximize their Christmas spend for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, good stuff, Patty. Always great to hear the latest trends coming up to the holiday season, and we'll see how the year pans out, but it's looking like a good one.
Looking like a good one.